Hello, all you unshakable women. As requested, I have been working on taking some of my lessons and experience with AI into consolidated into an AI starter kit for women 40 plus. Because I know all of the information out there is overwhelming and really too much and not relevant to us. So the idea is really for me to take all of the gurus that I'm following, and there are about 8 to 11 that I look at on a daily basis and I learn from. And I'm not a guru, so maybe my experience and my lessons can help you because we are going through the same thing. But to take the information, to curate it, and to put it together for us in this series so that it can help you in your daily life and in your business. So this session is about a quick demo, how I work with AI assistants today, which is November 2025. I'll update this as the tools change and they become available because this is something that is fast-paced and changing. But let me share with you right now what I have been using and hopefully it can help you. Now, as some of you might know, that my career has been in service design and in customer experience for 27 years, and a significant portion of that means customer research and report writing, understanding trends and analysis. And what I love about access to AI assistants and tools is that suddenly I have this available for free that in the past was months and months of work and primary research. Now I can actually ask them to listen to the online conversations. So my journey and my lesson is that I have been working in the last 18 months with a various array of these AI assistants, and I'm trying to help everything that is just relevant to us and some of my approach and frameworks. So let me share with you the ones that I have been working with. On a daily basis, I engage with 3 to 6, sometimes 7, depending on what I'm trying to achieve, of these AI assistants. I'm not saying you should do all of this because I do research and write reports and I have clients interested in consumer trends. My suggestion is that you go and play with 1 or 2 or 3 of them and see which one the style you like. And then also you need to understand some of them have different purposes. They are available for free. Once you find one that you really like, you can invest, which I have done, in one and subscribe to it, because then you are starting to walk a journey with that tool, and it can remember, and it helps because you don't have to repeat all of the conversations again. But let me share first. So my go-to first tool is ChatGPT. And I am no longer on the free version because I have been walking a journey for 18 months with ChatGPT. I now have a library of my information. It understands my conversation, my tone, and my brands. It is really best for brainstorming, for research, for writing prompts, for writing content, for my LinkedIn, for my Unshakable community, and for my business. It really is flexible, and it is something that I recommend that you play with, and then you maybe look at 1 or 2 of the others. The next one is Gemini. Now that's kind of just like Google on steroids. So it's easy, you are familiar with it, and it really integrates well with your Google workspace. One that a lot of people like is Claude. It helps, and it's got a kind of nice writing style. So if you are into writing and to creating content, this is something because it's got a calm tone and a very good interpretation and adopts your style. Another one, which for me, and if you are an academic and you need to verify and have verified research, Perplexity is really good because it runs off large language scale models that have solid research and backing behind it. So it is something that you can cite the information, it is helpful, and you can add it to some of the others. Then there's Copilot. Copilot is nice because it links into your Microsoft and you can attach and link some of your documents, Excel spreadsheets, and work together with that. Now, one that's on the peripheral for me that I like because it's just slightly different and it gives me a different perspective is DeepSeek. DeepSeek is from a Chinese company. It does analytical tasks and there's something just slightly different which makes me like to verify with it and then to go back to one of the other models. There is a seventh one that I don't really use on a daily basis, Grok. But Grok gives me access, specifically when I do trend analysis, into online social media trends and conversations. But this is the stack that I use, and depending on my objective, I would choose one of them. So for example, if I need to do solid research base, I will go to Perplexity first and then support it with one of the others. But let me share with you how I do that. Now, working with an AI assistant, and it's something that I'm trying to teach my children as well, it is all about communication. And you have to be pretty clear. Firstly, sometimes we walk into a situation and we just fire off questions. So before you just fire off the questions, remember that AI cannot smell what you are thinking. It can only work with what you give it and what you tell it. So you need to, before you just fire off the question, think a little bit about what you want to get out of it. And you also need to make sure that you give it context. Because often we walk into a conversation and we give no context, but then we are surprised when people don't respond in the way that we expect them to. So it doesn't know your life unless you tell it. But be mindful, you don't need to share everything. But if it's specific to the question that you want answered, you need to give it a little bit of context. Then, it doesn't make decisions for you, it gives you options. Very much, and I suppose that's why I like it as a consultant. You used to be able to give a customer, I see you have 3 options, A, B, or C. If I was you, given your context, I would choose C. However, you still have the choice to look at the others, the evidence, and make that decision. Then, it doesn't judge you. It is your thinking partner. But be mindful. One of the things about the AI agents is that it is created, and sometimes it gives you an excited sense of, oh, you are on the right track. It gives you, and it boosts your ego a bit. Remember, it is still a tool that is written to make you use it a lot more. So don't let the ego get in the way. The magic really happens once you start interacting with it, which means it is a conversation, a backwards and a forwards. You ask it one question, it gives you an answer. You ask it to simplify or to add more. You ask it to find research. You ask it to go and verify it, but it is a backwards and forwards, and that's where the magic happens. Now, just like in communication, it is very helpful to have a structure or a framework when you interact. Why? Because it helps you to structure your thoughts before you just kind of zap in there with a question. You have to think. You have to think a little bit. It's like, where do I start and what are the steps? It reduces the overwhelm because sometimes when you stare at a blank screen and you have so many questions, you don't know where to start. It removes the fear from not knowing because also it helps you rephrase the question because sometimes you ask something, it doesn't understand and you've got to rephrase it. So once you have a framework and you know you first do this, second and that, it helps you just to get to the answers faster and answers that you need. It builds your confidence. And then lastly, you learn what works and what doesn't as you play with the tools. So there are many, let me get there. There are so many frameworks and I have researched and tested and tried all of them. There's rigor, core, clear, safe, path, bridge. It's all different sequences of how you interact with these tools. I will put in our community a spreadsheet with some of these so that you can go and test some of these. But it's overwhelming. So I've used many of these, and the one that really works for me, and it's kind of logical, well, for me, but let me explain and maybe you understand, but there are 5 things. Firstly, Once you start interacting with the AI assistant, the first thing that you need to do is to tell it what it must be. What do you expect it? Do you expect it to be a copywriter, a teacher, a translator, a designer? But you have to assign a role. So you start your prompt with, act as my New York copywriter. Then you have to tell it what it needs to do and the objective. What do you want it to do for you? I want you to create a LinkedIn prompt post that will go viral, that can help, and you give the instruction or you give the question. Then you need to give it context. So you now have to tell it within what and for what you need it to do. My audience is this. I have this. They are struggling with this. I need to report my client. So you give it context just enough so that it can answer the objective. And then you need to give it some constraints, because otherwise it will go on a path that you don't need it. So you've got to tell it the tone. You've got to tell it how detailed you want. You need to know if it's verified or it needs to be creative. And then lastly, you need to tell it what output does it need to produce for you. Is it a one-pager? Is it a table? Is it a diagram? But you really give it that structure. Now, this is not as difficult as to remember 20 different structures depending on what you want to achieve. So I have created, and you can remember Rocco or Rock On. It is role, objective, context, constraint, and then the output. So now I'm going to show you, once we put some of this into those 6 engines, how do you interact with them? And we can test and we can play a little bit. This is a fun prompt. I didn't know this about myself that I've created. In our community, there will also be 5 or 6 additional ones. You can select one that you feel that you want to use. All you need to do is copy this copy in the gray section and paste it into the AI assistant that you want to try out or play with. And then it will ask you questions. Now, the idea is that you get comfortable with the backwards and the forwards. It will answer you something, you will respond, it will give you another question, and then it will summarize it at the end. 5 unexpected things that you discovered. So let's go over to the tools and I can show you how. Okay, simply take the prompt, copy it, and then you put it into your different AI assistants. So I've already put it into ChatGPT, and it started and it's run the questions for me. Into Google, and you simply, Gemini, and into Claude, simply paste it, and you can run it. Perplexity, DeepSeek, and then into my Copilot, which is on my desktop. Paste. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is that it will be interesting for you to see how they take the same prompt and how they, respond to that. So the prompt is about ask me 7 surprising questions that help me uncover things about myself. So in Copilot, it's asking, when you walk into a room, what's the subtle thing that you do? So that's the question. In DeepSeek, if you were to design a coat of arms, so you see it's a different question. Perplexity. Let's begin. Question 1. If your energy has a color, Claude. Think back to a moment in the last month or time that just disappeared. Gemini. If your inner cheerleader, your inner critic, blah, 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 and then chat. So what I found interesting is how each one interacts differently, and that is what you've got to go and try. And then you see which one, the style that you like the most, and which one resonates with you. And then you find the AI assistant that you feel most comfortable with. So go and play with them. And then my tips and suggestions for using these AI assistants. Start simple, start small, start with a single question or a single goal, and then go backwards and forwards and interact with it. Ask it follow-up questions backwards and forward. Don't waffle. Do give it sufficient context, but not too much. Give it your style. Tell it that you want a conversational or that you want to the point. What do you want? It respond. And if you want it to be your friend or if you want it to be your teacher. Once you get the hang of it, you can use the space like I did and then subscribe to one of it. And then that becomes your kind of library or your second brain because you can refer back to it and search it. And remember, let it do the heavy lifting for it, but never ever just copy and paste. And you have to challenge it because it does make mistakes. There's been court cases about people referencing an AI assistant and that were factually incorrect. So still use your brain, still use your skills and your experience. And then that is one of the reasons why I cross-check across 5 or 6 of these, specifically when I do research or I need to do consumer trends or a report for a client of mine. So those are my tips. And then lastly, remember it's a learning zone. There's no judgments. There's no right or wrong. Play with it. You can't make mistakes. You can't break it. You don't need to master everything. Start with just asking 1 or 2 questions, and then we will take it and I will help with more tools and what else you can do with it. So one tool, get the one that you feel most comfortable with, that you want to have conversations with, and then make sure that you focus on the outcome, that every time, because this is part of our learning experience, every time that you do a search, that you ask it questions, you will see that you learn something and there are new pathways in your brain. And that gets me excited because AI is helping us to learn in new, different ways that we otherwise wouldn't have. So go and enjoy, go and play, and then I'll share the next episode of our AI Starter Kit soon.